Out of all the hybrids that Bruce has faced so far, this is easily the most infamous. This is the Cthulhu Whale. What is there really to say about this hybrid? It's probably the second most popular hybrid in the aquatic hybrid war besides Vex. Why exactly? I have no clue. And I'm not dissecting why it is, because quite frankly, I don't get it. So, this was the hybrid that Bruce and the sharkopaths ended up detecting in the lost city of Rillier. I think I'm saying that right. Which, if you don't know, is actually the site that Cthulhu is believed to be located. With this being the Cthulhu Whale, I would only... well, I thought it was fair. Also, this thing isn't really a whale, so that name doesn't really make a lot of sense, but whatever, we'll just roll with it. Now, the sharkopaths do have experience hunting larger animals like this, but what they don't actually know is that this thing can't exist. I haven't really seen anyone else try and debunk this hybrid in a video, so I'm gonna be the first probably, because I'm just gonna flat out say it. This hybrid gets hanked. This hybrid does not function. This thing looks like if the Subnautica squid shark and Chelicerae had a baby. So, this is going to work a bit differently. Rather than just going through all the contributors and then talking about the problems, we're going to go through each contributor one at a time, since there's quite a few of them, and detail what they contribute and what problems that they might give the Cthulhu Whale. The Ichthyotitan provides the base, which is also why I said that this thing wasn't really a whale. The base genome is typically what the hybrid would be most closely related to if it was alive. So, this thing is most likely a giant marine reptile rather than a whale. Although Ichthyotitan does provide a fairly good and unique base with its large size and streamlined body. The sperm whale adds enhancements to the head, giving it a much bigger head as well as strong jaws with large teeth capable of biting through prey, which complements this creature quite nicely. But then it kind of gets ruined. The blue whale's contributions to added size weren't exactly necessary, since Ichthyotitan already can grow nearly as big as a blue whale, and the full size of this hybrid isn't even as big as a blue whale. The size estimate was never fully specified, but it was said to be around double or triple Vex's size. If we take Vex's size being around 25 feet, then triple it, we get a length of around 75 feet, which is actually a few meters shorter than blue whales. And also, with blue whales contributing size, that means they also contribute extra weight, which means the hybrid will be slower. There's also another major problem with this, but we'll get to that in a minute. The great white shark, along with the black tip shark, provide electroreceptors to give this hybrid electroreception. This works, but there was also a decision to place electroreceptors on the tail. But electroreception already gives you a full 360-degree range of vision, so putting them on the tail was just beyond unnecessary. I also don't really understand the point of including both sharks for this electroreception and increased senses when just one would have sufficed. Most likely the great white. The sailfish gives this creature increased speed, thanks to its fins and a much larger sail. However, these contributors work for a sailfish, not for a much larger creature like the Cthulhu Whale. The giant sail would just create unnecessary drag, as well as them not mentioning that they have specific muscles in their body, which will allow for them to make tighter turns. The Cthulhu Whale doesn't have those traits, which means its turns are going to be terrible. Although, while its fins might actually be fairly decent in terms of propulsion, the top speed of this hybrid is still going to be fairly reduced by the size of the whale. By the way, the claim of the whale reaching fast speeds in short bursts, yeah, they're fast for whales' speeds, which isn't very fast. Which means this hybrid would probably have a top speed of around 20 miles an hour, which is slower than the sharkopath's cruising speed. The alligator gar was added for its defensive scales, which work fairly well in terms of defense. They're probably not as strong as something like the arapaima, but they do provide decent enough protection. However, this creature has another form of defense in the form of hagfish DNA, providing a weird slime that it produces on its body. But this slime would most likely be hindered thanks to the alligator gar scales. You see, the hagfish, it doesn't have scales, which means it's free to pump out all the slime at once. Which means the slime could be a problem, but it won't be nearly enough of a problem to really deter the sharkopaths from biting into it. The saltwater crocodile was added for two reasons, that being the thermal regulation and its ability to go into freshwater. First of all, ability to go into freshwater, not the most useful for such a large hybrid, because it's likely way too big to go up any rivers. But the saltwater crocodile was actually massively underutilized, as they should have also contributed for energy efficiency, because once again, going back to the blue whale for a second, blue whales and baleen whales in general are terrible at being efficient in energy. Blue whales won't even bother to open their mouths unless they're guaranteed to get a big enough bunch of krill. So this hybrid is going to be slow, can barely turn, and will be terrible at energy efficiency, but it still, at least, could peaceably exist. Well, that was until a few other contributors were added. With the Cthulhu Whale being much slower than Vex, it needed a way to catch its prey. But this ended up being its biggest downfall. Combination of giant squid, Humboldt squid, and colossal squid give this creature camouflaging abilities, as well as 10 long tentacles, 8 around the face, and another 2 much longer ones trailing behind the creature, which would also end up creating drag. And do I need to explain how this wouldn't work? Because it just doesn't. Starters, squids are able to move their tentacles because they have no bones. Those tentacles would be boneless, as they were specified in the video, and without bones, it wouldn't be able. The Cthulhu Whale wouldn't be able to move any of its tentacles. It's a similar issue some people have with Vex and her glassfish flippers. They just wouldn't be able to move, so therefore they'd be ineffective in combat. So therefore be a much easier weak point for the sharkopaths to latch onto. Speaking of sharkopaths, maybe it's about time we get down to the fight. Bruce leads the sharkopath pack into the unknown territory of Rilia, this weird ancient city, because they found something unusual. They picked up a scent of another creature, something unlike anything else they've ever seen. It intrigued them to come here and stray off course, and now they end up finding this colossal red titan, the Cthulhu Whale. They immediately notice it being incredibly slow and having terrible turning, so they're able to move around much easier and be able to scan the creature for potential weak points. As they get closer, they grow weary of its tentacles, especially after one of their previous opponents is trying to grab them with tentacles. But they notice that the creature is unable to move its tentacles, which they use to their full advantage. Ironically, their strategy was almost identical to one they used previously in their battle in the North Atlantic against Cioella. They simply surround this hybrid and multiple attack at once, biting on any exposed part they can. The sail, the fins, and the tentacles, mostly. And with the tentacles unable to be controlled, they're pretty much easy weak points to be bitten down on. Some sharkopaths bite into the body, and they end up encountering some of the hagfish slime, but it's not exactly enough to affect them too badly. So eventually, after some time of just continually biting away at this creature, it eventually falls. Bruce and the sharkopaths triumph once again over a much larger opponent, thanks to their larger numbers as well as their cunning minds, capable of developing a strategy to be guaranteed to beat much larger opponents like the Cthulhu Whale, who sadly couldn't exist in this world, and is now going back to whatever planet it came from. Now, in terms of design, the Cthulhu Whale is probably got one of the best designs of any creature in the aquatic hybrid war. Not a realistic design by any means, but it was made for cool factor, so Alien Evolution did a good job of making the hybrid. I mean, definitely been worst first attempts, but maybe stick to the alien side, because that's pretty much where this hybrid will belong, as an alien. So now, Bruce and the sharkopaths are free to head back onto course, and back into arguably the most dangerous area that an area that in this ocean that houses the most aquatic hybrids, where some of the most fiercest competition has ever been. Getting control over those oceans would surely mean domination over the entire world, and that being the Bay of Bengal.